Hello, I'm in a random old project to try and go through a bit of UI stuff. So I was in the process of failing to use Unreal Engine 5 in any meaningful way. I just want to make a full screen widget. So right, there's nothing in here. So let's have a. There's a better way to do this, I'm damn sure, but I'm just gonna. Oh, no. Just put some padding on this so that we've got a little border. There's better ways to do that, but are we going to have a full screen widget? Yes, we are. Okay, so you can't see the bottom of my screen because I've got the wrong recording size, but you get the gist. I've put it in some weird mode as well, don't worry about that. Right, so here we have a full screen widget. I don't know if you've played with this. You have a sort of hierarchy of elements of a widget, and then you have a blueprint style thing where you can do slightly more sophisticated things. So I'm going to mock up a settings screen. So I'm just going to say I'm not probably au fait with all the things I need to know about this. I am probably not following best practice in my work, but I've made and tweaked quite a few widgets by now, so I'll show you how I go about it. Panel. A lot of stuff here is how you sort of start setting things out. Some things, like a head-up display, you want to be positioning stuff, you know, in fairly fixed places, or you know, some things will be along the bottom, some things on the side. Most widgets I do are just sort of lists of things, setting screens or whatever. So a slightly different approach is taken, but I might show you some of those things. But mostly I start off with figuring out how things are divided horizontally and vertically, and then sort of working from there, making it work. So I probably want to have a vertical box. Most things I do would be vertical boxes. I'm going to do replace with child, so if you screw up you just replace with child is very handy. And let's get rid of that one. So let's say, and it's settings header. I find good practice to name your elements, and somewhere here text block, general settings, why not? And because I did a dumb thing with the border, I need to change that. There we go. So brush color sets the background, content color is sort of a tint applied to all things. There are nicer looking fonts, but let's assume that's the font we want. You can change the size of fonts in an obvious place. So obvious I'm not seeing it. Font. Yeah, I guess I've got no alternatives. Size 16. But sizes, I wouldn't worry too much about particular font sizes because most things will be resized in ways you'll see. There are ways to preview stuff. Now, it's generally best not to do fixed sizes if you can avoid it, i.e. I want this window to be 1000 pixels wide. Avoid it if you can, because if you're, I'm assuming you're doing something for PC. Mobile, forget it. I am not even talking about mobile because you've got to be so flexible. I have no experience with mobile UI, but if I like sort of PC game UI, bear in mind that at one end some people will be having widescreen monitors at a resolution of 2560 by 1080, I think. More regular is around 1920 by 1080. The monitor I'm using now is 1920 by 1200 because it's a photographic sort of monitor. And Steam decks are things you probably want to target, and they are 1280 by 800. So bear in mind, if you say my window has got to be 1000 pixels tall, you're losing Steam decks. You're going to get something looking shit on Steam decks. And generally, things that look good on PCs are too fiddly on Steam decks. So beware going below, your 12-point text. That's kind of where you're at on that. Anyway, I'm rambling. General settings. Now you've got obvious text things. But again, at this point, I would think, right, when I've got my header, I want to have another vertical box to sort of already start subdividing things, individual settings. And then for now, I'm going to just shove in some text. And you can duplicate things. It's quite convenient. I mean, this looks like absolute turd, obviously. And then I'll probably have a vertical box. This is the way we do our UI anyway. Typically you get a vertical box at the bottom with sort of buttons. So let's put in a button. Let's make it an OK button. And it's going to be a variable. Anything you interact with will be a variable. And most buttons just have text in them. And this will be, again, I'm going to name all my variables. Okay, don't autosave. I don't want to save this. Oh look, I did something. Okay, that's a autofill. It's a little confusing, and I'm going to do a very poor explanation of this. But you have alignments, and I want a central alignment rather than a fill alignment. But also this is auto, and then there's fill. So these are sort of the same thing but not the same thing, and it's going to be difficult for me to explain how and when to use each of those, but maybe I'll have a stab at that. So if you have multiple things within a vertical or horizontal box, auto just uses the amount they need. Fill, which might be relevant in this case because we want the settings to fill the screen, the buttons to be at the bottom, the heading to be at the top, so I'm going to make this a fill. And that means that it automatically does that. Now if you just had a vertical box and a heading, setting, OK, it'd be a nightmare to get that kind of spacing. But that's why I'm saying wherever you can, break it down into further boxes. So you've got the buttons box, settings box, header. Header could be in another box. I might want to do something clever like put a line in there, so I'm going to make that wrap with vertical box. It's another handy thing. So if I then put in, let me see, one way to do it, not saying it's a good way to do it, what do I want to do? I think I'm going to wrap that with a size box. This is hacky, but you know, I want to say I want a height override 2 pixels. Make it fill. No. And okay, so my border is sized with the other thing, but if I say I want this to fill, yeah, that's no good, is it? I want to fill that way. So this is the tweaking. I'm sorry if I'm going fast, and this is something to do at the end really, but I would recommend naming your vertical boxes. So that's my header, so it makes it just a little bit easier, and you can collapse that to do this stuff. I'm saying the header padding is just space. There's other ways to put spaces in, but I want a bit of space, and if you want to preview it without all the crap, you can do that. So I've got a slightly more sophisticated header element, and I've abstracted it into a vertical box. Settings and OK does nothing, but we'll assume that's a thing. I'm just going to compile and save that. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to go to this one and pop it into my widget class. Did I do that already? I think I did. So hopefully if I run this, this is our widget, and you can see it's been resized and it looks crap, but you can change all that. There will be a thing I'm going to look at, is how to make sure things stay the size you want them to. So that would be okay. So this is our mock-up of a settings thing. I'm just going to make one element that may show some interesting things and may not do. I have a good directory structure. Going to make another one. Whoop. User widget. WBP dialog box. There may exist these somewhere in Unreal Engine 5. Now this is something that I want to be a fixed size. So I'm going to do my little trick of the nested borders, brush color, black, and then padding. I'm going to make it look a little bit nicer. A 1 pixel padding. I'm not recommending this method. I'm just getting there quickly. And then go down to the panels, pop in a vertical box, and I'm going to have well, let's just copy everything here. So I'm going to tinker with that in a second. I'm going to go to dialog box and paste, and I don't need 2 in a row, so I'm going to replace with child. That's your friend if you cock up. And I'm going to change the settings to one thing, which is vertical box message and vertical box title. Whoa! And I'm going to make this, well, I'm going to do full that. So with text things, you've got the option to make them fill the whole screen, but separately center them. And I think I want to center this. Do I want to center that? So I want this vertical box to fill. Yeah. That'll center the text. There's again a couple of ways to do this, but let's just put in some better default text and button OK, duplicate, button cancel. So I'm just going to piss about with this, and you can see. Now I'm going to do this in 2 stages, just because of the way it is. I'm going to wrap that with a horizontal box and pop that in it. So now we have our 2 buttons. Let's just make that say cancel and change the text to be actually cancel. Now that looks crap, obviously. I'm also going to pop some padding on that top 16. Never mind. Okay, and I'm going to do some stuff on this side. Don't want tick, don't want that just yet, that's a bit subtle. And I'm going to add some variables. I'm going to add a variable title text, type text. You want to work in text if you can, because it localizes more easily, or automatically even. And I'm going to make these expose on spawn. I think I need to tick that one too. That used to happen automatically in Unreal Engine 4. And what that means is that if you go to your full screen test, let's say I click OK, and I'm going to go down here and on clicked. Now I would probably have macros for this kind of stuff, but we're going from first principles. So create widget dialog, and you see, because those things are spawns, I can put stuff in there. And good practice probably, that's what we do, just have confirm save title, and then message, and then we want to do something with this. Again, got a macro for this sort of stuff to put it with a certain order, but add to viewport, and you want to have a look down here. You want this to Z order to be higher than the Z order of the thing it's being launched from, otherwise it will just disappear. So right, we've passed that on. Let's set confirm save message, click OK to save changes. Now when you localize the game, these things are automatically exposed and localized if you want to, so that's why we do that. Right, I'm just going to change this to be somewhat, just a little bit less confusing. Save changes. Again, I'm not doing anything with the aesthetics of this. This looks like dog turd. That's okay. And on our dialog box, we go back here, default text. Now this setting setter, let's call that text blocks title text, and I'm going to make that a variable, which means we can access it from the blueprint side. Text block message, message. So now when you take a look, we have this. So set text. There's other ways to do this. You can do it in the design menu, but this will do it once when it's needed. I don't know how well optimized the other stuff is. I'll show you that. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is go in the designer, message. The quickest way is to say that links to that. There is a third way, which to do dynamic things, and it's probably inefficient because it might get called every tick. You can create binding and say it's whatever you want. Blah. So that could be any process you want, but I don't know how often that's called. It might be a bit inefficient, so I'm going to get rid of that and just make it normal. So up to you. I find that the functionality gets a bit hidden away if you are doing it in this stuff. I think it's better to have it all in one place, very explicitly setting the stuff. So if I'm not mistaken, if I click save changes, I then get this, confirm save, click OK to save changes. That is the text we put in. That's not going to work because I didn't set anything else up. But that's not quite what we wanted. We don't want it full screen. Let's wrap it all with a size box. And as the exception to the rule of don't put any explicit numbers in, just make sure they're safe numbers. Min. Well, that would be one problem, wouldn't it? So you can have a minimum and maximum, which can help with tricky sort of making it work for everything. When you add to viewport, it fills the entire screen. Now you can do the set desired size and viewport thing. You could do that. What we do is just say, okay, it is full screen. So I'm going to wrap it with an overlay, which means that the overlay is full screen, and within the overlay we have centered this thing that is this size. So this will be this size, and it will be centered in the parent element. So what happens then is that when you go save changes, you get this dialog box at the size you specified. The actual widget it's in is full screen, but you only see this bit. Okay, so got that working. We can make these a bit nicer. So my OK button's going to have 8 padding to the right, my cancel button's going to have 8 padding to the left. It's a little bit better. Again, I wouldn't stick on that as an aesthetic thing, but it's functional. Let's just make that a tiny bit smaller. Yeah, classy, you see? Different text sizes, classy. We're going to do something else. Add some event dispatchers. This is advanced widgeting, but clicked OK and clicked cancel. Now let's hook those up. So click on the OK button, add a click event, and what we're going to do here is say call clicked OK. So this is called an event dispatcher. Elsewhere it's a delegate, it's a callback, it's a this and that. Essentially this widget doesn't know what's calling it. It doesn't know what it's embedded in, but it wants to pass back some information. And so I'll show you in a second how you bind to these, but this is saying, you know, anything that wants to know, they've clicked OK, and maybe nothing wants to know. And then I'm going to add another event while I'm here. Custom event is what you start with all the time. Close dialog. Now widgets are handled inside the garbage collection system, so you don't have to worry about deleting them. If they are floating around doing fuck all, they will get destroyed automatically. So the way you want to hide widgets is usually just remove from parent. That is usually sufficient to cause things to die. And once you remove it from parent for a full screen widget, it will disappear because the parent is the full screen. So that is sufficient to make it all go away. Sometimes you might want to keep widgets around and reuse them and hide them instead. But this one, fuck it off. So let's go to the cancel button, do that click, and then call click cancel. And then we want to put it in a more sensible place and close dialog. Now for more advanced things you might want to put a variable. Let's go to town. Dialog type. I'm sure I'm redoing something that's been done a million times, but I'm just dialog type. So I'm now going to go to very exciting advanced stuff again. Let's make it an enumeration. Now the conventional, you have E for enumeration. What we do is have like the project initials as the next thing for all of our things. So BP initials something. This project has some stupid name. Full screen test. Okay. EFST dialog type. Maybe dialog types. But add enumerator. Okay, cancel. Okay, only. Yes, no. Sometimes you want a yes or a no, sometimes you want okay, cancel, sometimes you just want to say this is screwed up. Okay. So I'm not going to fully implement that. But we're back in the dialog box. What we could do, so dialog type EFST dialog type, make it exposed on spawn and editable. So when we go back to here, it's not appeared. This is just, you blank it and select it again and it'll update. So this is how I would do that. so that everything is nicely exposed wherever you need to use it. You might want to encompass all of this into a separate thing, but what I'm going to do is modify this. What am I doing? Just ignore what I'm doing. But don't ignore this bit. Bind to OK. Wait a minute. Have I compiled everything? Oh, I compiled everything. Bind to clicked OK. Let's see. Bind to clicked OK. So we don't care if it's a cancel. If it's a cancel, you want to do nothing. So we just do nothing. But if somebody clicks OK, I drag and release, type custom event, and then something is usually on, clicked OK, and then something else, because you'll have lots of on clicked OKs. On clicked OK, confirm, save, or whatever, you know, whatever naming thing you want to do. And then we want to somehow do something there. So you'll just have to take my word for it. Let's do a print. Save confirmed. So what I would do in the dialog box is then read the dialog type and then maybe do a, what am I doing? One thing you might want to do is make the button text variable, and you see it makes it bold so it stands out a bit. And what you also might want to bear in mind is that if you click on a variable and then go to graph, it will automatically select the variable for you. And so let's say cancel text, set text, and you might then want to put those into variables. I think they'll still be localized if they're not, but it just makes it a little bit simpler. And so I'm going to go back to the designer and finesse this. I'm going to put padding on both sides so that if one of the buttons gets hidden, it's still symmetric. And so OK cancel. Right, I'm going backwards. Let's get the OK one. This may be slightly too much detail, but I'm seeing where this takes me, and maybe I'm rambling, but that's half the fun, isn't it? So certainly not best practice in terms of how I'm setting up my blueprints, I'm sure. But this will be a fully functional. So OK cancel, OK should be OK, OK only, OK. If yes, no, yes. So we say that yes is OK in terms of what we report. For cancel, if it's OK cancel, cancel. OK only, doesn't really matter, about to hide it. And then no. And then we have one final one, which is cancel text. We want not the cancel text, the cancel button. Button cancel, that's what I'm talking about. And then set visibility. This is something you do an awful lot of. Just make that a select, and maybe I'll just set that up. It goes all over the shop. What I'm going to do is select them, press Q. We all want to do that, don't we? And there are shortcuts that I never remember to use for some of these things. OK cancel. I want visible. Things that don't interact you want non-hit testable. So, but visible, because it's a button, we want it to interact. OK only, collapsed. Hidden means what it says. Collapsed removes all trace of it. So if it was hidden, the OK button would be off-centered because the cancel button would still be perceived as there, but collapse just gets rid of it altogether. So that's set up how we want it to be. Let's just do a quick test. Save changes. OK cancel. OK, and there we go. Save confirmed. Let's try that again. Nothing printed. So that is functional. That is functional. I'm just going to go in there and let's try OK only. Come on, lad. Let's show him what we're made of. OK. So it's centered because the cancel button is collapsed. And one last one. Let's do a yes no. Yes no. Yes. Confirmed. So, I mean, that's not bad, eh? That's a dialog box done, sort of. And we can forget that now. So let's go back to the designer of this one. Setting. So we want to have a setting. Let's say, now that's something that we could abstract, but what do we want? Let's mock it up. So we want to have horizontally what it is and the setting, let's say, as the simplest version. This is something that's a bunch of horizontally aligned things. So wrap that with horizontal box, and I'm just going to duplicate that. Now you have all of these, you want to have some aligning. So this is tedious to do as it is, but let's see what happens in a second. I'm going to pop a size box on that and say I want my settings to always be 200 pixels, maybe 300. And let's say cheese name, and this we want to be your desired cheese name. Let's make it a writable thing. So somewhere input editable text, doesn't need to be multi-line, so I want that to be editable text. Let's see, replace with, but I can just, yeah, sometimes you can replace with things. Oh no, there you go. So replace with editable text. Again, cheese name, make it a variable we're going to want to know, and the text, we could put some text to start with, but actually what's neater, what's nicer, especially if, you know, depends on what we got there, but this, you can, it gives you that hint until you start typing, then it goes away, so that's quite nice. Or setting text, and this could be number of cheeses, and that would be a number. But let's first of all say, right, we're going to want a few things like that. Rather than set this up manually, whenever there's something like this that's going to be a reusable element or something that needs to be standardized, your first thought should be, well, let's make that another widget. So I'm going to go to here and make another, like there's just a shit ton of widgets all over the place, but that means you can make a change in one place and then it's done everywhere. Setting text. So here I've got my empty widget. I'm going to go back to my thing here, and this is my setting, so I'm going to just say Control X and Control Paste, and I probably want to put a size box. Well, one thing to do is to say I don't want to go fill vertically, I want to be doing that on both of them. So we may have some issues still, but and then we're going to do the same things we did before with exposing stuff on spawn. Setting name, text, and default value, let's say. That's going to be a string because you're working with strings. You probably want to have the setting as a string. and let's make those exposed on spawn. If you don't do that one, it just complains, so like, why not just do it for me like you did in Unreal Engine 4? But anyway, 'tis butter trifle. Butter trifle's not the best trifle, but anyway, cheese name. Well, we'll kind of call that something better. Setting name, and it's a variable, and we've got it selected. So when we go back to the graph, there it is. And actually, I'm going to use pre-construct. So construct is called when the game's running and it opens the widget, then construct is called. Pre-construct allows you to preview stuff before the game runs, and this is a good example, because if I was using construct for this, it would still be saying cheese name as I was working with this thing. And now I'm going to put in, I have to search the palette, setting text. Sorry to jump around. You've got pause and rewind buttons, I mean, come on. Individual settings, I'll pop it in there. And where's me one? Yeah, so this is my widget, and you can see setting name. So cheese, and default value, I'm going to leave blank. But if you were, for example, if you'd loaded your config, you would put your current config value into this widget here. You would set it there. But let's leave it like that, and let's duplicate this. And again, always put your name on it so it's easy to see it in this hierarchy. Wine, why not? Why not? So as you can see now, well, you can't see, but if I was to set the name like I did for the dialog box, it would still say cheese name because it's not running. It hasn't run to have that step. However, if I go into this and go pre-construct, set text, and this tells me if it's now at design time or if it's during the game. The setting name, let's pop that in there, and this should now, yeah, it doesn't work. Oh, I didn't even put one. Setting name wine. So that means that you can now really usefully play with these sort of setting things. And what you might want to do then is, I'm just thinking how best to, so you could use the dispatcher to tell the parent widget when a setting's been changed. That's a bit of a faff to bind to it. You might want to have something where, okay, the setting widget's only ever going to be used with this parent widget. Then you might want to make some assumptions about what events you can call in the parent. So, not sure about this. It's not ideal, but as a way to quickly get some results, custom event, notify setting set, and I'm going to make that text because we might do a number. I don't think I've got time for that. I think I'm rambling too much. And let's say setting widget is my preferred thing. Generally safest to pass around user widgets. And then that's enough information because we can read stuff from it. But I'm going to have new value. So it's a little bit redundant, and I'm going to just do a little report print setting doink set to doink. Whoop. So I'm going to cast to the widget that it actually is, and get setting name. That's going to convert from text to string. I'm going to grab this and plug it in. Like, this is a bit hacky, but for the purpose of illustration. So again, I'm not recommending this as a general thing. Like, you'd probably want to bind to the widgets, and then maybe you'd iterate through the widgets, bind to them each in turn. That would be nicer. That would be neater. So, or maybe we'll do that. Maybe I'll be good. I need to make this a variable, and if I make the assumption that this only contains the setting text, what I'm going to do is in my event construct, don't want to be doing this early, go get my individual settings, get children, get all children, and do a for each. And I'd probably put this in a function called bind to widgets, but we'll just do it here. I'm going to cast to setting text. So if it's picking up other things, it's not going to do anything with them. And then bind to, I didn't change anything, did I yet? So I'm going to go back to here, create an event dispatcher on value set, on new value set, and this will be tell you what, so to sort of future proof it, passing the widget rather than necessarily individual things. New value. Okay. I'm not going to bother with set a value. You know that would be doable. So we've got setting text. This thing, editable text, setting name, and then on text changed, as if you'd like type a letter. Don't care about that. On text committed, when you press return. Not going to worry about this. There's more than one way to change things. So I'm going to call on new value set, and so the widget is this self. The new value is available here, and we're passing as a string, so we'll do that conversion. Tighten it up a little bit. So anytime you type some text in, it will do this event, this dispatcher, callback, delegate, whatever, and it will be something that we are now binding to on here. So we're back in the settings page, bind to on new value set, and don't need tick, can't remember what it is. So this is kind of the thing I've already set up, so I'm going to just bin that and go custom event on new value set, and that automatically fills in all the variables that are passed. I'll bring back this stuff, so the widget is there, and that goes there. Alright, so this is kosher. This is better. So ideally the child widget doesn't need to know anything about what it is embedded in or called by, and so here we are just binding to all of the things and saying if you've got a new value you can tell us here, and the child widget only needs to do this dispatcher, it doesn't need to know what the structure is above it. So let's see if that works. I think that might work. Cheese, come on, bear. Oh, I don't think you spell it like that. Do you know what? Cheddar. And it says setting cheese set to cheddar. It says it twice, so I might have done a dumb thing. Wine plonk. Setting wine set to plonk. So don't know why it's doing it twice. So yeah, no, I mean there'll be a reason for that. I don't know what it is. But there we go. So I think I might draw a line there. Number of cheeses, you can do the same thing, but with numbers you just have to convert a string to a number, really. But that's like a basic system. I hope that gives some pointers. Another thing to do is if you want to do different kinds of layouts, let's just quickly make another widget. I'll just show you some of the other things. So use widget, let's call it, let's, like if it's a HUD or a more graphical, exciting thing, we might start with a canvas. So a canvas panel is like the most customizable complex thing. Let's put some text in. Let's put an image in. An image, why not? Images, let's find a thing. I mean, what's an image? Android icon. I guess that's Android. Image size. So that will by default, let's say 32 pixels. And you're saying to me, Matt, why is that squished? Why is that not respecting the size I put in? Why is it not respecting my authority? It's all this canvas stuff, and it tends to get reset in weird ways. So first of all, you've got to decide, well, where do I want it to be? Is it going to be positioned relative to a corner, an edge? Let's say I want it at the bottom. And nothing happened, Matt. Why did nothing happen? Because it kind of assumed I wanted to have the same thing but relatively different. So it changed the position. If I zero that, you see it's now behaving badly but in the middle of the bottom. And the alignment, this is where's the offset from? So one does it from the other side, but what we really want is to say I want you to measure it from the bottom, so that if I have an offset of 0, that's aligned to the bottom. So if my position y is 100, if my position y is I press the wrong button. If my position y is minus 100, it's 100 pixels off the bottom. Now we probably want 0.5, so it's centered. You can size it to content. That's what we wanted. So if you make it bigger, it gets bigger. But you usually want to just control your size here. But the size, maybe it's okay. So 64 by 64 is that. So you can, with the position and the size and the alignment, you can do that. And the Z order is if you have things that are overlapping, the higher number will be on top. So that's why if you change that to 32 and 32, nothing seems to happen, because the final thing that happens is this. So if you want to change the size of it, you can have that 1, doesn't matter. It's this size that is determining everything. And if you move it to the left side, again it doesn't zero anything, but if you zero the position, you'll then find that, okay, maybe I wanted the X alignment to be 0 and then 0.5 on the Y, so it's centered. You can drag stuff around as well. That'll just manually put in a position. So some things are suitable for canvas. You might have sub-elements of your widget that work with canvas. If you're displaying stuff at various positions, that might work. But overlays are simpler but can do that sort of stuff. So instead of a canvas panel, we have an overlay. This, if we put an image back in, and I'll find Mr. Android. Where'd he go? Okay, so this doesn't have that layer of position and size. It's just behaving like a normal widget. You can resize it directly. It's normal in the sense that you can use these normal widget controls. Do you want to fill? Do you want to do, for most things this is enough. And then if you want fine control, you just put a bit of padding in. So this can be appropriate. And normally you put in borders of things, and so if I wrap this with a border, and then if I wrap it with another border, I make that one not problematic, and then the padding on this one, so there's ways to build this simple stuff up into something more complicated. Let's say we put that in a vertical box, and then we have buttons below it or something. So yeah, that's hardly scratching the surface, and there's other things you can play with. There's built-in stuff, sliders. That didn't work because it's never mind. Fill. Well, I don't know. I've never played with a slider before, but there's lots of inbuilt stuff you can play with. some complicated things like lists, scroll boxes, when to use a tile list, when to use a scroll box, when to use this. Most things that you do, you can just plug a scroll box on top of it. So you just, well, it'll be so where I'd use a scroll box here is in this bit, the individual settings. I would wrap with scroll box, and what that means is that if you say, alright, I want to try, not quite that extreme, I want to try a few different sizes, if you get it just so, it will automatically, doesn't work on the preview, automatically scroll it if it needs to be scrolled. Like this is nasty, it's not quite working, but you see what I mean. You just pop that on. If I replace with child, I get rid of it, and you get an overlap. And then you need to start doing things like, well, maybe I want to change the clipping. Clipping's usually inherit, but if you go clip to bounds, you want to combine that with a scroll box often. That then, you know, there's little things like that that are little things that work nicely when you aren't doing a complex layout. And if you're doing a complex layout, it'll all be a nightmare. But that's my little first run through UI stuff. I hope it's interesting, I hope it's useful. If I really screwed up something, let me know. Yeah, have a good one.